Alright, AQ40. Starting off with a pull on Obsidian Eradicator. This mob will drain mana from the raid, and if it reaches full mana, it'll explode for a decent amount of damage and potentially just kill everyone. Next we have the Anubis Sentinels. Now, when one of these dies, it takes on the abilities. All the other mobs in this pack will take on the ability of the one that died. So multiple abilities. There's a Thorns effect. Generally, that will be killed last because we don't want all of the ads to have thorns. It kind of does a lot of damage to the melee. There's a Thunderclap ability, one of the more dangerous ones. You kind of move the mob away so it's not affecting the raid. There's a Shadowbolt Volley, 20-yard range. If you're within that Shadowbolt Volley and getting hit by it, just move 20 yards, within 20 yards of the mob's area. There's also a knockback and I think a mortal strike. I'm not too sure about the mortal strike though. But basically, figure out which one's the most dangerous, kill it last. Kill the easier, less dangerous ones first. Pretty basic stuff. They also have a vulnerability, so this one's doing a shadow form. My shadow attacks are working on this mob. But sometimes, when you do damage to a mob, it may reflect your spell and you need to change to a different spell type. So if I were to do a fire spell or an arcane spell on that mob that I was just hitting, it would have reflected back onto me. So it's just those two schools of magic. So Frost and Shadow go together, or Arcane and Fire go together. Either one of those two sets of schools will be immune and reflect your spells. So this area, you just want to make sure that you're pulling these cleanly and not pulling it all together too much. And if you do accidentally pull one of the patrols with the Anubis Sentinels, just make sure that the Eradicator dies, because otherwise it's just going to drain the raid's mana and explode, and that's never a good thing. So yeah, these mobs, sorry. When one dies, they take on the ability of the one that dies. So just kill the most dangerous one last. And try not to take too much damage as a raid. And speed this up to the boss. Okay, so this is Prophet Scarum. For this one, you want to pre-pop a greater arcane protection potion. Everyone should. Now, the mechanics of this boss, so at 75%, 50%, and 25%, the boss will spawn two illusions of itself. You can see there's a triangle marker on the boss here. The reason for that is that the marker will stay on the boss when it makes illusions, so you can tell which one's the boss and which one's not. So basically, you'll have your main tank area. You'll generally want to have the boss in the center. At 75%, the ads will spawn. You will have your off-tanks taunting the ads that spawn. They can spawn in the middle, they can spawn on either side of the platform, so if you're an off-tank, just pick it up wherever it is. You also have someone kicking each of the illusions as well as the boss, and your warlocks will generally Curse of Tongues the illusions as well, just so it's easier to interrupt the arcane explosion. The other thing as well is if you have threat on one of the mobs, one of the bosses, and you're not within melee range, they will do I think it's like an Earth Shock for nature damage that is pretty brutal. But the most dangerous thing in this fight is actually your friends, your teammates, because they will get mind controlled. If your mates have mind control, there's a good chance they could kill you within 1 to 2 swings because it's buff damage. So we'll show this combat. So everyone has a job to do. Mages are going to be sheeping mind controls, frost overing mind controls, any kind of CC on a mind control. Warlocks are making sure that Curse of Tongues are up. Rogues and warriors are kicking the arcane explosion, and tanks are picking up what they need to pick up. It's a pretty basic fight. I'll let this one play. Now, because of the mind controls, I'm going to jump on the railing of the staircase because it's harder for them to hit me here. See, the illusions of spawn. Now the boss is at 75%, now it's at 60%. Another set of ads are going to spawn soon because we're doing a lot of damage. There's a dude there mind controlled. And look, he already killed somebody. Okay, we're about to come into the next set of illusions. Now, if you don't kill these ads before the next 25% threshold, there's going to be multiple ads up still. You can keep spawning extra ads if you don't kill the ads, so it's important that you do. And mind control still isn't CC'd. There we go, you finally got a fear on it. Boss is dead. Players are dead. And we didn't unburn because we knew that the mind controls were dangerous. Anyway, we'll move forward. Alright. So the boss is dead. We then move into the next. This is the next trash. So we got Guardians, Karaji Guardians, and Karaji Brainwashers. Now, Brainwashers mind control people. Not very dangerous, but the Guardians, they will knock you up into the air and potentially kill you if there's no roof above you. Like that. Those people just got knocked up and they hit the roof above, so they're pretty safe. So when a Karaji Guardian is at low HP, basically any nearby Karaji Guardians will come to its aid and knock people up into the air when it's at low HP. So if you can kill them all at the same time, that's a good thing. If you have a roof above you, that's even better. We're going to talk about warriors in a moment because we're about to pull a warrior pack. Now these are just tank and spank mobs, but when they die, they spawn a bunch of ads. So have an AoE taunt ready, a lip shout, and if you're DPSing, have a lip if you're going to sap or hellfire like I'm doing here. Pretty basic stuff. Now, in this area, we have mobs down this hallway, and then we have mobs below us near the boss room. So we're basically going to coordinate pulls between our hunters. So one hunter is pulling the lower end, and one hunter is pulling the ones at the top. As I mentioned before, the Guardians do a knock-up where they knock people into the air. So the reason why we're fighting them here is because it's the safest spot to do so. If you're a melee, you're also attacking them from the front. Kind of like the ads in MC on Gar. You attack them from the front with your back to the wall. And that way, when you get knocked up, you're hitting the roof in this little cubby. Now, with the Brainwashers, they're going to mind control people. Warlocks are going to Curse of Wreck the mind control targets, the friendly targets. We want Curse of Wreck on our friends. It makes them fear immune. It also gives them a damage increase on melee. Now, unless it's called for, there's nothing to decurse in this raid. So if you see a Warlock has put a Curse of Wreck on one of your teammates, please don't decurse it. It's very, very rare that you'll be asked to decurse something in this raid, if ever. So we want those Curse of Wrecks up. So once again, we're just pulling from the top, pulling the Guardians underneath that little alcove, AoEing them down, melee getting knocked around, but they're not dying. Oh, that guy might have been out of position there. So yeah, melee DPS attacking from the front, not the back. So our hunter's pulling from the boss room now. And yeah, we'll just pull from the boss room, pull from up top. Pretty basic stuff. Until we've cleared out all the trash from the hallways. Let's try to speed this up to find the boss. Where is the boss? I think we're almost there. There's another warrior pack. Here we go, boss time. Okay, so this is called Bug Trio. There is Lord Kree, which is the father, Princess, which is the mother, and the baby, Vem. So the kill order is to kill the dad first, the mother second, and then the baby. If you were to kill the baby before these other two, these guys get pretty angry about you killing their baby and they enrage. So, yeah. Generally, this guy's either killed last or second last. depending on what's happening. But in this case, we're going to kill the baby last. Mechanics wise, this guy hits like a truck. When he dies, he leaves a very, very fatal poison on the ground that will kill you very quickly. He also does a poison bolt volley. So pre-popping a nature protection potion for this, just a standard one, it doesn't need to be greater, is fine. If you were doing Kree last, I would encourage you to go for a big one. But yeah, we're going to kill Kree, then we're going to kill Princess. Princess heals. Princess also spawns ads when she dies. She also fears. So tremor totems and make sure that you're kicking the heal. Now, kind of like those ads before, that when you kill one, all the rest of them heal. So you kill this first dude, all these guys are going to heal up to full health. So there's no point in stacking them for cleave because they're going to heal. We'll let this play. And then killing Kree, Princess, then Vem last. There you go. Poison Bolt Volley and a fear. And she's trying to heal, but she's getting kicked. The square mob, there we go. The skull died, and there's that fatal poison on the ground. Hopefully you're not unlucky and you don't get feared into that poison ever, because that's something you can't control really. And the ads are about to spawn. There we go, ads are spawned. Kill the ads once you kill the princess, and then run to Vem. Vem has one mechanic. He'll charge people. So stacking up is just what you do. It's very, very basic. Not dangerous at all. Doesn't hit hard. Just charges. And depending on what boss you kill last, depends on what loot you get. So a lot of people kill Vem last though, because it's the easiest. Alright. So, as I mentioned before, we had hunters pulling from the top and the boss room. So, the hallway that we're pulling ads from is actually clear at the moment. So we've pulled all the ads into that cubby and killed them. And the hunters are using Eyes of the Beast to put their pets in a position to pull, and then they're sprinting back once they've pulled. So they've pulled all of this hallway. So when we come through, you just hug the right hand side, because they've pulled all the trash out of here. Alright, so next boss is battle card Satura. Okay, important things to remember for this. Now, if you're a healer or a ranged DPS, you need to be at max range. For a few reasons, but mainly the reason is that the boss will drop threat and will just start spinning. And if it spins in your direction and you don't move or pop a lip, you're probably going to get slapped, especially if you're wearing cloth. So the ads, they basically also drop threat. They also do a knockback. So generally what we'll do is we'll move into the right hand side of the room with our back to a wall. We're going to kill the ads first, and then we're going to kill the boss second. The boss can, it does enrage at a certain, I think it's like 30% health or something like that, where it starts doing a decent amount of damage, and its spin is extremely dangerous. So when you see the boss turn red, just be aware it's doing more damage. There will be more than one tank on the boss at all times, by the way, because it will drop threat when it spins. And when it does that, you need to do a taunt rotation. So every 3 seconds, a tank will need to taunt the boss and make sure that it's sticking in position. If you don't taunt the boss every 3 seconds when it's spinning, it's going to start flying around the room and not stay still. And that's always bad, I think. So we pulled the boss. Off tanks are picking up their ads. You'll see a knockback in a moment, I would say, from these ads. They're going to knock back a tank and drop threat. There you go. So kill those first. They can be stunned, by the way, those ads. And the boss can be stunned also too. When the boss isn't spinning, you can stun it. So just try to chain stun it if you can. So as you can see, the target of target on that boss is that the tanks are taunting every 3 seconds, and that boss, even though it's spinning, it's staying in the same position. So it's not getting loose and doing a lot of damage to the raid. Okay, it's going to turn red very, very shortly. 20%. Okay, so 20% it turns red. Now, melee getting chunked. One melee died because he didn't back out or didn't create a stone shield for that. So he ended up dying because of it. He stayed in when the boss was spinning on sub 20%. So once that boss is dead, you're going to come over here and do a bug gauntlet. It's kind of like the gauntlet in BWL, just killing bugs there. So group up and go through the gauntlet and get ready for the next boss. We've got battle chickens on a mob on the side here trying to get squawks for the boss. We may be doing this depending if they allow squawks in our raid. On logs, that is. Alright. So, this next boss has a massive aggro range. So you'll notice that we'll get into this little cubby on the left before we pull the boss to gather ourselves, make sure that we have mana, make sure that we have whatever we need to be ready for the boss, and then we're going to go in together and pull it. Now, this boss doesn't really have too many dangerous mechanics. If your DPS is good, it's an extremely short fight. It does a stacking armor debuff on the tank, but the boss is tauntable, so if you do have bad DPS and your stacks are too high, you just get another tank to taunt the boss. You won't see many mechanics in this footage, but there are worms that do spawn, and if they do spawn, you want to stun them and kill them immediately. If you leave them alive for too long, and say a tank taunts them just to pick them off the healers, there's a good chance that tank's going to die if it's been around for too long and it's enraged. The worms are very, very dangerous. They hit for like 9 or 10k. Anyway, we're all going to move in together and stack up on the butt of the boss. There can be ads that basically need to be cleaved at the rear end of the boss. So it's just best to have everybody stacked up. But yeah, it's just a loop pinata. There we go, there's a bug. And we'll just AoE any bugs that are on the butt. That's it. Okay, we'll notice that people are throwing on their frost weapons and getting their frost oils ready. They're putting on nature protection potions, and they're getting EPRs ready for this as well. EPRs are elixir of poison resistance. As Horde, we have poison cleansing totem. So some groups will have that. So EPRs will be needed for the people that aren't in a poison cleansing totem group. So this is Vicidius, or Viscidus, however you want to say it. So the goal here is to have your frost weapons on at the start, or do frost attacks to the boss. Once the boss becomes frozen, we then want to do physical attacks to it to shatter the boss. Once the boss is shattered, it will turn into small blobs. I think there's about 20 of them. And then basically they'll all converge in the center where the boss was originally, and you can basically supercharge them and do AoE on them to do quite a lot of damage. I think each blob that you kill is something like 5% of the boss's HP. So It's an easy way to kill the boss if you can do it with a decent amount of AoE. You don't need a lot of AoE though. You can do it the old-fashioned way, but it's just a lot easier if you have a lot of AoE or sappers to do this fight. So the tank's going to pick up the boss and move him towards the center of the room. It just helps with the positioning when we have those small blobs spawn later. Now the boss is going to hit the tank relatively hard for the most part. Poison Vat volleys come out using poison elixir. And we're at one third of the freeze required. I think it's 150 frost attacks, but don't quote me on that though. Now we're at 2/3. Mages are using Frostbolt. Melee is smacking it with their Frost Oil and Frost Weapons. Boss is now frozen. We're at 3 of 3. Now we need to do Shatter. Shatter is physical attacks. Wow, that Shatter was fast. Okay. Alright, so all the blobs are on the outside. You can do some damage as they're coming in, but now you just get group up. People are going to sapper. And now the boss has reformed itself. Now, I'm just going to pause this for a second. The boss's health is 1 HP. So we killed all the blobs. So that's a good thing. We've done as much damage as we possibly could to the boss. It has 1 HP left, but to kill it, we actually need to freeze it and shatter it again. It's just the way it works. I think it's sub 10%. You need to freeze and shatter the boss to be able to kill it, but you need to get it to sub 10% or under, I'm pretty sure. So we're going to do that now. We're just going to freeze it up, put our frost weapons on again, frostbolt again. And then once it's frozen, we'll shatter it, kill it, and yeah. Just cleanse the poisons and stay out of the poison clouds. That's it. Very, very easy boss, to be honest. I don't know what the big fuss is about. Three of 3. And shatter. Boss is dead. Okay, moving on. Just talk a little bit about this trash before Princess Uhuron. Okay. Now, Hunter's going to pull these ads into this hallway. If by chance you do pull multiple, you might want to consider free action potions. And you want to kill the white bugs first and just cleave the wasp that come with it. So mechanics wise, with these ads, the white bugs do a charge and the wasp do a poison. So the wasp will poison you, and if a white bug charges you when you're poisoned, it's going to do a ridiculous amount of damage. If you don't have the poison, the bug charges you, it's not too bad. There's also those whirlybirds. They do a knockback, so have your back to a wall, not to that open space where the other mobs that are patrolling are. And they also do a 360 cleave. So you just want to pull them over the side. Whoever's tanking him, have your back to a wall and kill those last, basically. So white bugs first, followed by the wasp, and then the whirlybird adds, the lashes. You want to kill them last, if you can. There you go, see that tank? He's pulled them over to the side. He's got his back to a wall. We just take care of that one there. There you go. That's their meds. This is Princess Uhuron. So, as Horde, we want to let the tank get threat pretty cleanly for this to be a good pull. Alright, so, Princess is being pulled, tank's in position, melee hitting the boss from behind. Take a note at how the range are at the moment. They're fairly spread. The reason why they're spread out is because there can be poison sent out to the range and the healers, and it silences. So if you're near somebody too close and they get silenced, you will also get silenced. So please, if you're a healer, spread out so you don't spread a silence. because we want the heals to be taking care of the tank. At 30%, the boss will enrage. It also needs to be tranked by hunters. So do that, hunters. But yeah, 30% is going to hit pretty hard on the tank, so just pump heals into him. The only person who gets poison cleanse on this fight is the tank. Don't poison cleanse anyone else on this fight. We want to do as much damage to this boss as possible. So, big heals on the tank. He's probably going to be wearing decent threat gear. Because threat is going to be basically the main factor here. At 33%, melee are going to need to pop another greater nature protection potion. Because they're going to be soaking a decent amount of nature damage in a moment. When the boss goes big and grumpy. There you go, boss is dead. With insane DPS, Mage's doing 2k and Warrior's doing 1.7. I mean, this is a Nax geared group, so... I mean, our fights probably won't be quite as fast, but... still a clean kill. Alright, these ads. They can be tricky. Just pay attention to the mechanics and where people are positioning themselves. So you may notice that there's two stacks. There's a melee stack and a range stack. Once again, there are schools of magic immune or frost reflect. So frost and shadow is not working, so I have to use searing pain here. So I can use arcane spells or I can use fire spells because it's shadow frost reflect. So the plagues are moving out to the side of the room and they're getting healed. Even after combat, you're healing the plagues because the plague tick is like 1100 damage. And they're just staying away from other people. Because if you've got plague and you're near somebody else, it's damaging them as well. And two plague targets stacking on each other is even worse. Because you're plaguing each other for extra damage. It's horrible. So after combat, making sure that you can... Here we go, there's an example. 1100 damage from me standing next to this dude with plague. So two stacks again. Now, the mechanics on these mobs vary. There's a meteor, there is a thunderclap, there is a shadowbolt volley. If you get shadowbolt volley, be 20 yards within range of the mob. If it's thunderclap, I think it's a 30-yard range, so you want to be, if you're a caster or a healer, you want to be about 30 yards back away from the thunderclap mob. And if you are a melee, on this trash, I would definitely encourage you to have a nature protection potion for thunderclap or for plague, just in case. It will help out. So the plagues move to the side of the room. Now, the boss's hands are glowing red. What that means is that the boss is now, the mob is now immune to physical attacks. It can only be damaged by spells, and it's going to explode. So if you are a melee and you see glowing hands, you want to move away. Move away as soon as you can because the boss is about to explode. Let's see if we can get a meteor one. That's another thunderclap. Shadow and frost reflect. Meteor. Okay, so with meteor, you don't want to be standing by yourself. You want to be in a group of at least 3 people to soak the damage and spread the damage over the 3 of you. So we're now 2 stacks. Thunderclap is being hit on the melee. Decent amount of ray damage as you can see. The melee getting a little bit messed up there by the meteor and the thunderclap. Is probably one of the harder ones as far as raid healing goes. But they're the mechanics for those, and we're on to twins. Okay, twins. So we have 2 physical tanks and 2 warlock tanks. We have DPS, caster DPS, and physical DPS moving from side to side of the room. We have half of the healers on the left, half the healers on the right. And we have off tanks picking up adds that aggro onto healers. So we'll start off with a pull. Just getting some threat on this and pulling it back into position. Now, these yellow bugs, these small scarabs and scorpions that are around me, they can do two things. They can grow big and start doing massive physical damage, or they can grow slightly bigger and then explode and do a decent amount of damage through fire. Fire AoE explosion. So I'm standing on the stairs to avoid getting a exploding bug, because exploding bugs can't hit you when you're on the staircase. So the physical tank has picked up the boss on the teleport. Next teleport is about to happen. So the caster boss is going to swap over to this side in just a moment. I'm going to try and pick him up. Okay, he's teleported. Now I'm using my Searing Pain. See the physical tank? He didn't get out early enough on that teleport, so he got a knockback. If you're a physical tank and you're too close to this caster boss, he's going to do an Arcane Explosion and send you flying. Okay, so look at where this this warrior is. He's close, but he's not too close. So he's not getting hit by the Arcane Explosion, but he's the closest person to the boss. And the reason why he's doing this is because when the boss teleports, the person who is closest gets about 3k threat. So just being the closest person to the boss when it teleports, he gets the highest threat threshold. Which is also the reason why the caster boss will hit him when that teleports too. So watch this transition. Watch this warrior. There you go. Instantly, threats on him. He moves to that position. He's got the 3k threat. He's building threat on this. Melee has swapped from the opposite side to this side. They're pumping on this fucking boss. Freaking boss. The druid. If you look at this druid. This druid is chasing after this huge scarab that wants to clap a healer, and he's picking up any loose adds as well that he sees. Here's the off tank picking up stuff. So he's making sure that everything's in order. The melee are clearing any bugs that are aggroed, by the way, for when they move side to side. So if they see a bug aggro, they're going to pick that up. The scorpion's about to smack somebody. And the caster boss is on this side, so I start doing Searing Pain. If you notice, a blizzard is now landed in this area, so the casters and the healers are moving out of that blizzard. And the boss is dead. So, if you're a ranged or a caster, you need to be aware of your surroundings, because you may have a blizzard above your head at any point in time. You may have an exploding bug exploding near you. So just be aware that you can't just look at the boss's HP, or you can't just look at your healing frames and expect to survive. You need to be aware of what's going on. It's a pretty simple fight though. If you follow just the simple job that you have, it's very basic. Anyway, we'll move on to the next part of the trash. Okay. Good example. Champion. We got a Mind Slayer and a Spinny Slayer. Now, kill order will be you kill the ones that spin first. You then kill the champion. And then you want to kill the Mind Slayers last. Because the Mind Slayers, they do basically a raid-wide fear. So you don't really want to be feared when you've got people to heal and things to DPS. So we generally leave those for last. So the spinning one is dead. The champion fears also, and he also drops threat. So let's say that you're tanking the skull marker, the person who was spinning, and then your target dies. As an off tank, you'll go over here and you'll help out with the champion. Once the champions are dead, you got the Mind Slayer left, and then when it dies, you can see all these people running around because they're feared. So we're going to clear out the entire hallway, just pulling these mobs back. And then just working our way through the corridor until we get up to this next step. It starts to open up here, and you got a couple of new different variants of mobs as well that you need to think about. The other thing to talk about is positioning in this hallway, especially in this section. These Anubisas and the mana draining birds, the nullifiers, they have a massive aggro range. So because there's patrols and things like that and mobs that fear, you need to think about your positioning. So the big guys, they can fear. The champion obviously fears. So when you're positioning these mobs, you don't want to put your raid in a dangerous position where they might accidentally get feared into another group, and you're then dealing with more than one pack at a time. So you may notice that we've got the Skull and the X together, and hunters are trank shotting when they turn red. So that's good. Hunters, take note of that. You need to trank shot the Slayers. And the reason why they're in stacks of 2 is because the amount of cleave damage when there's more than 2 of them can be a little bit too hard to heal. And melee can take too much damage if they're not too careful. But yeah, kill the whirlies first, champion, and then finally the Mind Slayer. We're going to do a pull on the nullifier as well as the water. Now the waters have different abilities. They're very, very different. Sometimes they'll silence, sometimes they'll root you and do nature damage. They'll fear you. They'll do fire explosions, all kinds of stuff. But our main goal is to take care of the mana burns first. And so the ones that mana drain and potentially can explode, we want to kill them first, and then we want to kill the water last. There you go, he's got a fear. So if we had an unlucky fear, or if that mob was closer to where it was, there's a good chance that we would have had an extra pack there. Just move forward. Okay. When you have multiple mind flayers, or mind slayers I should say, you want to kill them all at the same time. So this pack is a good example of that. So they've got 1 spinner, they've got a champion, and three of the mind slayers. So you watch this pull. They're positioning the first kill target, the second kill target, and the other 3. Now, if you're tanking a Mind Slayer, the ones that do that fear when they die, these ones over here that we want to kill all together at the same time, they can't be taunted. So if you get mind controlled or feared or something like that, someone else needs to pick up that threat or be second threat. So having them stacked up together and you're just cleaving for threat and everyone else is touching everything else, you're probably going to have second threat on another mob there. So the champion will die in a moment, and then we need to kill all 3 of these at the same time, just so that way it's not a staggered fear. You're only getting 1 fear, not 3. And that was done perfectly. All 3 died at the same time. We got 1 fear. I'll move on to Oro. Okay. So with Oro, pops up out of the ground, and we kind of want to have a triangle position. So the raid stands over here. You got your melee stack here. Your hunters are back here shooting things. Your healers are in this side as well. And the main tank is not stacked with them. He's stacked over here because the boss will do a more than one ability, but he does a sweep, which is a knockback on the tank, and he also does a sandblast. Now, Sandblast is important with positioning with Sandblast because 180 degrees of the boss's frontal cone, he's going to drop everyone's threat if you get hit by Sandblast. So this tank is probably about to get hit by it. Yes, he did. So this tank is now spinning and his threat is at 0 because he was hit by Sandblast. That's the reason why he's standing over there. So anyone within 180 degrees of where that tank was standing, this is why this guy here is spinning also, because he was too far left. So his threat is now at 0, his threat's at 0. The boss has moved to second on threat, which is this warrior, and that warrior was in the DPS area. So the off tank was in the DPS area. He's now going to move around to the main tank position. There you go, the boss is turning around. And this guy who had 0 threat now needs to go into the melee stack and pop a threat trinket or something like that to try and get second again. Threat trinket, death wish, etc. He's about to get sound blasted and it'll be next one up. So he got sound blasted, his threat's now at 0, next tank moves around. Now the other cool thing is, as casters, the reason why we're over here is we can actually eat the sandblast too. But as range, we can outrange the sandblast and just hold top threat and eat all the sandblasts if we manage to dodge them. So if you do it correctly, and so about 1 to 2 seconds before Sandblast is off cooldown, when you see it on your DBM timer, you start walking back as a warlock, and if you're this is if you're top threat, of course. You start walking back a little bit, and when you see the boss cast Sandblast, you just keep running towards the back of the room, and then basically you've baited the Sandblast, but it doesn't hit you, so your threat is still top. And what that means is that those physical tanks that were rotating because they were getting Sandblast and moving from the melee stack to a tank position, they don't need to do that. They just have one physical tank there the whole entire time because the caster is eating that threat drop. So we can do that over time. It's pretty fun actually. Another thing for warlocks to tank or fire mages to do. So we're getting all of our protection potions on for Cthulhu, which is the last boss. I'll try and speed this up. So pre-potting nature protection potions. Alright. Okay, so the raid leader is put a diagram here for where each group is going to go. So think of this as a clock. So group 1 is going to be at 12 o'clock on the clock. Group 8 is going to be at 6 o'clock. Group 4 is at 3, and group 5 is at 9. And then basically you just sort yourselves out accordingly. So each group has a marker. So circle is my group's marker for this fight. So I'm going to go over kind of where the circle area is. So that way, in phase 1, when ads spawn and things like that, I basically have a section where I can kill the ads and everything's covered. If you're a melee, you're going to stack up on your marker as well. So let's say I'm a melee and there's a square mark in my group. I'm going to stack on top of the square when it comes to this phase. Because that I-beam that the tank is currently baiting, that chains to people. So this is the reason why we're not attacking right now. All we're doing is running to our spot, and we're not doing anything. We're not getting on the threat table yet. When we're in our position, then we can get on the threat table. I'm too close to that dude, so I move back towards a wall to create space. Now a claw, that claw just spawned and knocked a melee over here to the wall. There's nothing you can do about that. The claws will just randomly spawn and punt you. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Now, that I-beam just went onto me, but because I'm not close to these people, that's not chaining to them. And each time that beam chains, it does double damage. You look at these melee, they're stacked up on the character models. They're very, very tightly stacked. They're not dancing, moving left and right. They're not fucking strafing or anything like that. They're just doing regular DPS standing still. The eye tentacles are spawned, and dark glare is happening. So range DPS or all DPS turn around and kill the eyes. That's dark glare. That big red beam, that will kill you. If you get touched by that, you're dead. It moves very, very slow though, so we started off in this position here. Now we're going to move 180 degrees to the other side of the room. So the opposite of 100 would be here. So I've gone from, what is that, say 2 o'clock. I'm going to move over to 7 o'clock on the map. Another claw spawned. Now with the claws are still spawning. So if you're really unlucky and a claw spawns underneath you and it knocks you into the eye beam, well, GG. It's just bad luck. There's nothing you can do about it. See, that just happened there. That if those melee just then got thrown into the eye beam, so the dark layer, that would have been bad. But we've gotten through phase 1, and if you look at it, we've only got one person dead. Phase 1 is definitely the most dangerous part of this fight. So if you can stack up tightly if you're melee, and if you can spread correctly as ranged and healers, and not chain eye beams, you're going to have a good time. Alright, so the next phase, everyone collapses to the same side of the room because ads are going to spawn on top of people. So that giant claw that just spawned there, that spawned on top of somebody. So they all got knocked away. That's the reason why we have everybody on this side of the room together. Because things like that are going to happen and we want them to be predictable. We don't want them spawning in random locations. Now if you look at the DBM timer up here on the right, you'll see that it has giant claw tentacle is spawning soon, giant eye tentacle is spawning in 9 seconds, and regular eye tentacles are spawning in 8 seconds. My job as a ranged DPS is to kill the small eyes at the back of the room. You'll find that the melee are going to take care of the large eyes and kick them because they do an eye beam like the one that killed us or kills people in phase 1. And then they're also going to kill the small eyes at the front where we are now. You look at that, I just did a Shadow Bolt to the boss and I did 31 damage. Because at the moment, the boss is basically in defensive mode. We've got to weaken him. And the way that we weaken him is people will get thrown into the stomach. So that was Cthulhu swallowing someone and putting him in their stomach. And they'll come up on this little section of DBM here. And basically that guy's been thrown into the stomach. And in the stomach there's 2 tentacles. We need to kill those tentacles to basically put the boss in a weakened state to do damage to it. So as I mentioned before, the small eyes are spawn. I've gone for the ones at the back as a ranged DPS. That's what we do. Melee have gone for the big eye and the ones over here. So we just make sure they're dead. Someone's been thrown into the stomach again. And we're all stacked up together. We're waiting for the next thing to spawn. But one stomach tentacle is dead. The other one is about to be killed. Now this is the perfect time to put the boss into a weakened state because we have no ads on the surface. So if you're on Discord and your raid leader says kill the tentacle, you need to do it immediately. So inside the stomach we have someone who can heal. We have 3 melee DPS who can really easily kill those tentacles quickly. But they also are getting a debuff when they're in that stomach. So with a healer in there, you're pretty safe. But if your stacks get too high when you're in the stomach, you need to get out as soon as you can. I would say about 6 or 7 stacks is probably the time you should get out. And nature protection potions definitely help if you're ending up in the stomach. But we killed the stomach tentacles. Now the boss is weakened. My Shadow Bolts are no longer doing 31 damage and they're now doing over 3k. So everyone's just putting all of their damage into the boss. Now this is error. on our server, which is Anniversary, we're going to be getting healers to dot up the boss as well. And see where these melee DPS are? There's a line in the ground, as you may have noticed. Basically, just to the right of the line in the ground, where these guys are currently set up, this is the back of the boss. So if you don't want to get a parry as a melee, you stand here to hit things. This is where you're going to do the most damage. So this is a very, very well-geared group in Nax gear, so they only get one weaken phase, but depending on your group's DPS, you may get more than that. Alright, that's Cthulhu done, that's AQ40 done. Thanks for watching.